All right, this video is mainly pertaining to connecting two pieces of clay, but I'm going to be taking a simple cylinder or a clay cup and showing you how to add a handle. I normally will start with a ball of clay and go back to my coil rolling tips that I gave in an earlier video. Start by kind of stretching it out, evening it out with those pinches. Get ready to roll that in a nice even coil. I generally like to roll more than I think I would need for the handle so I can cut it thinner. But really paying attention to rolling this as even as possible. I've got a little bit of a flat spot, so I'm going to adjust some of the pressure. You can also pull a handle. That's another technique that I'll show in a different video, but a simple one is just to roll out a slab. This will be more than I need, like I mentioned a minute ago, but when I go to connect, I can have some extra to kind of play with and see what I want my design to be. It's okay to think outside the box and consider other options for the shape of your handle, like you can have extra little flare added on. Doesn't necessarily matter. I'll do a light curl like that on that end and then just end the other one traditionally. So once I have an idea of how it's going to connect, I will go ahead and take my needle tool, set my arc, and then cut flat edges for my piece to have a good clean contact with the cup. The wider the space where it touches, the better contact it'll be. So you can see that a little bit better. Cut a little flat spot, cut a little flat spot, and that should help it sit really nicely flat to the piece. Now that I know I'm ready to connect, I'll roll this up on its side so you can see. I just like to trace my zones or really give quick outliers for where I'm going to need to score. So I line it up, get it exactly how I want it, and then draw parameters that I'll be working around. So then I'm left with this. You know the 4 steps. First one is scoring. Scoring are just my tiny little scratch marks into the clay that kind of help each side grip like Velcro. They can go in any direction. You can crisscross them, whatever you need to do. But essentially, you're just disturbing the surface of the clay so it will grab what you're attaching to it. So you have to do both sides. Don't just do one. And it'll be very obvious. Thinking that you can skip this step will unfortunately probably lead to heartache when you get your piece out of the kiln, because those will no longer be connected. After I score, I will go to slip a slightly watered down clay. You can apply heavily to one side or just a little to both. I just kind of like to blob it on heavy on the one side, and then I'm ready to attach. I've scored, I've slipped, now I need to press. This is where I don't really want to squish my coil or ruin my coil handle, but I want to really give it a good push, and you can see some of that slip kind of easing out the edge, or oozing out the edge. Same thing down here, I want to push that end on. Once I've pushed it on, you can use a variety of tools, but I've got some of these that are in the black container at the middle of the room, just nice plastic smoothing tool. And I normally will take some of the clay from the upper half, so I'll kind of support it here so you can see. Take a little bit of clay from that upper half and drag it down over that seam. Now you can smooth that back over afterwards if you're worried about it changing the shape of your piece. Now I know it'll look rough at first, but then if you take the time to come back in and smooth that over, it will clean up nicely. And if you want that line back, then come back and draw that line in. But please don't leave that seam, as it can create a crack in your design. So I need to do this all the way around. Often will students just do one side, but I really need you to work all the way around to the other side, getting rid of that seam and smoothing those edges out, and often neglected up underneath that handle. So once I've gone all the way around, I've got that seam smudged out. I can smooth it a little bit with my fingers or my hands. This bottom section is now well connected. I could probably smudge a little bit more in there. If you feel that you've gotten too skinny with that support, then you can bring in a little extra clay, but don't pack it in there. I normally roll a coil and kind of put it up underneath this edge right here to support it. I'm going to do the same thing I've scored, I've slipped, I've pressed. Now I'm going to smudge or smooth, whatever you want to call it. I'm taking some of that clay and dragging it down over the gap so that I know I have a solid connection and it's going to last. This applies to really how you connect any piece, no matter how large or how small. I would use these same techniques. I'll take some time to clean this up, but that's a general idea for connecting it. Don't trust the handle at this point. Please wait till it is fired and connected sturdy to your piece before picking it up.